Welcome to the Trek Wars podcast, the one podcast that dares to answer the most important question in fandom, which is better, Star Wars or Star Trek, by going through both franchises in chronological release order. I am Kenny Madison, the Star Trek contingent, and with me, as per always, is the co-host with the mo-host.
'Tis I, Aspen Webster, your Star Wars person.
Aspen.
Hello.
Aspen, please.
Yes.
Be done with that haughty attitude. Get down from your high horse and join the resistance of people that are attempting to make something happen.
No, I'm up in the clouds. It is I.
Well, but before we get our heads lost in the clouds, why don't we go ahead and say that we're covering the Cloudminders from Star Trek the Original Series, from Star Trek the Original Series Season 3, versus Liberty on Ryloth from Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 1.
Cool. We could say that if you wanted. Or
we
could also say, hey, look who's here. Look who we got with us. It's Mark Gerchak.
I was going to add some descriptors on there first.
No, we don't.
Have actor. Screenwriter. Raconteur.
Hottie.
Oh. Stone Cold Fox. Mark Gerchak.
Stone Cold
Fox.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
The bad boy of the Austin comedy scene, as it were.
It's true.
If you see someone rolling around on a motorcycle in a hot leather jacket in 110-degree weather, that's going to be Mark Gerchak, baby.
Yep. Always headed out to Makeout Point to look at the stars.
Mark is the subject of many a crush. It's true.
So I've heard. I wish that I had heard the tea directly, but I have
heard
multiple people.
No one told Mark.
No.
No one told you?
People, there's just like, I like how that's secondary gossip. It's like people have crushes, and then people are talking about the crushes that other people have, apparently.
Well, the real secret is that we're the ones who've had crushes on you, but it was in the past. It's too late now. It's too late. We missed our chances. We're like ships passing in the night.
You're the
Kenny and I are both in love with you. I'm so sorry.
Dang. Well, it's mutual because I'm in love with y'all.
It's so great. Anyway.
And I appreciate this entire love fest. But before we get too further into all of it, why don't we go ahead and read the synopses for both of these episodes for folks that are not watching along and are playing the home game.
Yeah.
I guess I will go ahead.
You'll start?
I will start, indeed.
Cool. You do it. You do you, my man. My boy. My boy.
My sweet precious boy.
My sweet precious boy.
The Cloudminders, of course, first aired February 28th, 1969. Director Judd Taylor. Story by David Gerald and Oliver Crawford. Teleplay by Margaret Arman. And reading this review from Joan Crosby in her syndicated column, TV Scout. Joan writes, for its waning days, Star Trek comes up with a script that is relatively simple and understandable, even within its own futuristic concept. The Enterprise travels to a planet on an emergency mission where the crew must obtain an antidote to a deadly plague. Kirk and Spock arrive during a slave revolt and find that they cannot get the much-needed antibody.
Okay.
That's it. That's the synopsis.
That's it. Who wrote that?
Joan Crosby from her syndicated column, TV Scout, as ran in the Delaware County Daily Times, serving Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, on February 28th, 1969.
Good for you, Joan.
So that's a contemporary synopses from the time period.
Yeah. Kenny's really good at that.
Amazing.
I just find synopsis from IMDb.
It helps that Star Trek is an incredibly written about show for me. And Clone Wars, it is much more difficult to find anyone talking about it.
Which reminds me, I totally forgot to watch the Filoni Zoni.
I watched the Filoni Zoni.
Oh, Mark, you'll have to hear all about the Filoni Zoni.
Yeah, I don't know about this.
It's like the only behind the scenes stuff that we have about Clone Wars.
Truly.
Incredible.
I just watched the episode and went, rad. That's all I did. And then I was like,
yeah, I heard your skateboard going outside
of
the window while you were watching
it. And I did a little ollie, and I was like, okay. Put my cap on backwards.
Which, to be fair, was in the shape of Dave Filoni's hat. So it really just looked like you were still wearing a Dave Filoni hat.
Yeah, and I was like, I really like my skateboard. Yeah, that's good enough. I'll get in back. I'll get back
It's
into
passable.
that.
It's passable. It's passable.
I think really like what we really need. It sounds like a little kid plus.
Yeah, it does.
Is that a Dave Filoni impression?
I'll figure it out.
I don't know what he sounds like. To me, that sounds accurate.
It's nasally. I have to get into it.
You sound like the kid that was turned into rocks from the latest episode of Very Important People.
I think that is what's happening right now.
Deep.
Hey, it's me. So I'm taking this film noir class, and last night was the first night of it. And she was going through the teacher of this class is like a dream. She's so cool. And
has she ever played anyone cool as like mom in a movie?
She's played Emma Stone's mother in The Amazing Spider-Man, and she also played Bo Burnham's mother in the show that he did. Zach Stone. Yeah. She's just great. She's just like such a cool. Just like I don't know. I can already tell him like, oh, I love this. And she was going through the archetypes of film noir, and there's like one of them is like innocent bystanders, and it's like the innocence, and I just was like, question. Could there ever be children? And she's like, there are never really kids in the movies. And I'm like, but could there be? And I'm like, the rest of the night at little intervals, I'd be like, it's me, an innocent kid. Look at asshole. Sorry. I just really like playing. Oh man, I don't know. Like kids. Mark and I were talking about this earlier, where it's just like you got the note of like never play a child or an animal, and I'm like, that's all I play.
I loathe whenever I see children or animal being on stage in an improv show. Absolutely detest it. It's miserable.
Oh, I love it.
That's good that you still have joy in your life, Aspen.
Then I sent a screenshot to Mark that was like Will Hines talking about how he might try to stop students from being specifically talking animals, but how audience seemed to love it. So who was he to say? Anyway, this has been Improv Talk. What was I talking about?
Star Wars: The Clone Wars?
Oh, I need to do mine. Let me do mine. Okay. Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Liberty on Ryloth. Director Rob Coleman, writer Henry Gilroy. And it was released on March 13th, 2009. What a good year for wine. I don't know.
Very good.
Mace Windu and his clone troopers aim to liberate the Ryloth capital of Lesu, but need to acquire the help of a Twi'lek resistance group led by Shamsin Dula in order to do so. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much straightforward in what it was. Yeah. I mean, good. This is a good plot. That's a good plot. That's a good plot. Yeah. So that's what happens. It's the third. It's third episode of the 3-parter. So we had started the last one we did was Innocence of Ryloth. So it started with Storm over Ryloth, and that's like whole like needed to. I don't know if you watched the Mark, but you didn't have to. But like they had to break through. It's like they've had to do like each level of like separatists. It's like they had to break through a blockade first, and then like they actually get onto Ryloth, and then they have to like sabotage some separate weapons in there, and they have to go through that. And now it's like this kind of final like getting it back from the separatists. Kenny, you're doing such a good job on acting it out.
Might work.
And I really want you to know, they're my sweet little precious boy.
Oh my God. Well, speaking of sweet little precious boys, Mark, as our guest, as the person that is in the trademarked Trek Wars hot seat, we like to ask our guests what the heck your histories are with both of these franchises. Where did you encounter them to begin with? Do you like them? Do you hate them? What do you think?
Wow. What if you hated both of them?
That'd be wonderful.
Aaron, what a hot seat I'm in. So
I'm actually more of a Wim Wenders guy.
I haven't seen any Wim Wenders. We don't need to get into it.
What even is that? Oh, it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. Okay. It's fine.
It's fine. Mark, it's fine.
It's Wim. It's Wim.
It's Wim.
Vim? Yeah, I think it is Vim. Is it Wim Wenders?
I think it's Wim Wenders.
What are we talking about?
Wim Wenders made a movie that I need to watch called Perfect Days, which apparently is about a guy who's very satisfied with his life. And as a fan of just narrative theory, I want to watch that movie because, as Aspen can tell you so often, I'm sick of movies that... I'm just sick of movies, period. Whoa. But so many movies feel that the only way to tell a story is just through conflict. or rather a conflict meaning a character achieving a goal. But I am of the firm belief that drama does not necessarily equal conflict. Drama doesn't even necessarily have to have change in it. But
That's true.
it sounds like drama here in this case might equal contrast, which I am much more of a fan of versus the more overt, fighty word conflict. But anyways, I'm going to write that into the show notes to cut Wim Wenders' chat from the final episode.
Why
Just
would you
for the
cut
patrons.
Why would I cut Wim Wenders' chat? We got to keep it high and tight, lean and mean.
Kenny, this is it. This is the podcast. If no one's listened to this podcast and this is their first time, they need to understand that this is the podcast.
I'm going to keep bringing back Wim Wenders consistently, so you have to leave it in because it's going to be a callback every time.
All right, I'll just leave that in the footnotes just in general then.
But my experience with these franchises. I'm a Star Wars boy growing up.
Yes.
So sorry, Kenny.
He famously truly hates Star Wars.
Famously hates Star Wars.
Can't stand it.
But yeah, my folks showed me the original trilogy whenever the special editions came out. And I was like, this is my new obsession. I was part of the Star Wars fan club. I got the magazine for like almost a decade.
The Star Wars, what?
Star Wars Insider.
Star Wars Insider.
Mm-hmm.
Wow! Look at this! Look at this! Look at this guy.
Yeah, big into it. I remember actively because I got the Star Wars Insider magazine. I knew every year that all the prequels were going to come out, and this is a real insight into who I was as a little boy because I was 11 when Phantom Menace came out, and I did the math to be like, oh. When Revenge of the Sith comes out, I'm going to be 17 and I'm going to be too old to enjoy the toys. And I was actively sad as an 11-year-old, knowing I was going to be too old to enjoy the toys when I turned 17.
Oh, wow.
Dang.
That's like an insight as a child that is existentially devastating. I just want to say, I had a similar sort of thing. Do you ever like have the book, The Polar Express? Like, obviously, I haven't seen the Zemeckis film because yikes. But
I wasn't rich enough to grow up in a family with books.
Well, if you got the case of like, you would get the book and it would come with, if you ever read it, there's like a bell. And the whole point is that like, oh no, I'm gonna like cry. It's like you can hear the bell when you're a kid, but it's like adults can't hear the bell. And the whole idea is that maybe like they lose the spirit of like the play and the childhood like joy of Christmas. And so I'd like pull out the bell every year and ring it for myself just in case. And I'd be like, one day I won't be able to hear the bell anymore. Anyway.
Chilling.
But you still can hear it because you still kept your childlike spirit.
Oh my God, thank you. I lost it. I lost the bell. So that's you being 11 years old, being like, no.
Yeah.
So sorry that you gained the ability to trust your own eyes and ears as opposed to what childhood teaches you to be blindly obedient to a system that is telling you do not trust your eyes and do not trust your ears. Instead, trust what only the leader puts in front of you.
Oh no.
Expresses a fascist nightmare.
Kenny's the bad guy.
This whole
Dear Christmas.
So sorry. You were a real Star Wars boy.
You're a real Star Wars boy.
Yeah, and then Star Trek. I always feel slightly ashamed when I talk to Star Trek fans because my introduction was J.J. Abrams / technically Justin Lin's trilogy.
A great movie. 2009 Star Trek movie. Great.
Kenny has it on his list.
Great.
Kenny,
how do you feel about Star Trek Beyond?
Oh yeah. The second one. Sorry, Kitty has it on his list of like one of the things you should watch to get into Star Trek. The 2009
Absolutely.
film. Sorry, and I interrupted. Yeah.
No, if you're hanging around Star Trek fans who are like, "How dare you start with Star Trek?" Those people are bad people. I gotta say,
you should stop being friends with them.
Because that movie is really fun. Star Trek Into Darkness. That's a bad time. That's a bad movie.
That's a movie.
It is a movie.
Sure is a movie.
Bad movie written by a 9/11 truther.
What?
Fact.
What?
Wow.
Fact.
9/11 truthers are fact?
Yes. Did you know that 9/11 truthers exist?
Can't melt steel beads. Yeah, but other than those films, I have taken a run at Next Generation like 3 times, and I keep getting like 5 or 6 episodes in, and then I lose it. I lose the momentum.
You're starting with the first season?
Yeah. And the first episode is like, I assume a special because it's like 4 hours long.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Famously,
it's
I've
not
heard
4
it's
hours.
hard to get through.
The first 2 seasons?
First episode.
I would say that the first episode is probably the best episode of that season.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have heard like that season can be
And then starting with the second episode, it goes down sharply. I
Oh.
cannot wait to get to it.
Nar.
Dang. But I love Patty Stews, and I was like, I'm going to be into this. And I do love him.
Patty Stew, an actor who everyone thinks is great.
Hot take?
Kenny.
He's just British. He's just British.
He's very charming, though.
He's extremely charming, and also, like, his theater work. Yeah, sure. Great. Wonderful. Outstanding. But you watch, like, his TV and movie work. If he was American, he'd just be like an actor.
Does the accent get everybody?
I think the accent gets everybody.
Does the accent make everybody thinking he's a good actor?
He's responsible for a dune buggy chase in Star Trek Nemesis.
Wow.
Because he loves racing cars.
Is that the one Tom Hardy is in?
Patrick Stewart.
You're talking about Patrick Stewart?
Patty Stew.
Literally, my bros, I genuinely thought you were talking about someone named Patty Stews. And I was
Patty
like,
Stew.
what are you saying to me? Kenny, Patrick Stewart is an extraordinary actor.
He's an extraordinary actor in terms of his stage work. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but like TV and movies,
I feel insane right now.
The delayed reaction of Aspen realizing who we were talking about and then having a violent reaction to it.
Tell me where I'm wrong, counselor. Tell me where I'm wrong, counselor.
Will not accept. Stand down, lawyer. I don't accept your case.
You should accept my case.
I've been a judge for 10 years in this district.
That's true.
And I'm saying you gotta go.
But like in what pieces that are not Star Trek or X-Men movies have you watched Patrick Stewart and been like,
I mean, X-Men movies, pretty fabulous.
Didn't I just say Star Trek?
But I mean, like, why do those not count?
Because they don't. All right.
What? Do you remember him in Logan? Like, that was extraordinary. That film was just so good.
What if he was sleepy all the time? Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I can't believe your hot take is Patrick Stewart isn't actually good. He just has an accent.
I think it's true. I think because he effortlessly, just like latter-day Morgan Freeman, who is able to sleepwalk through so many roles. Latter-day Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
Who shows up and is like, I'll tell the white guy with the gun what to do, and I'll get that check, and I'll be able to chill out. Which
That's what you're talking about.
More power to him, because that too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
In Westworld, though, no, we don't have to get into it.
We don't have to get into it.
So we don't have to get into it.
We don't have to get into it.
We don't have to get into it.
So, Mark, your introduction to Star Wars was the special editions. Have you seen the original unaltered trilogy since then?
I don't know that.
Or have you always been a special edition kid?
Well, I think my introduction was actually the original trilogy, unaltered original trilogy.
Right.
Nice.
I think.
You watched.
I had them on VHS, and I don't remember.
Yeah, probably. Like if they were your parents and they owned them, and it was like pre-97. Yeah.
They had faces on the cover.
Yeah.
Do they have faces on the cover?
I don't know. I remember they always started with some guy going, the original trilogy, one last time.
Definitely. Yep, that's definitely it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I saw the original. I've seen the prequels. I've seen the sequels. The only show I have seen is Andor.
Well, I mean, you picked the best one.
That's what I heard. And I didn't want to watch that one for like a year or two. And then people were like, it's the best thing ever.
I understand.
It's truly great.
It's truly great.
If you want to talk about rebellion.
Yeah.
And we will talk about rebellion.
Starting Now, both these episodes are really good.
Both these episodes are really good. Mark, do you think both these episodes are really good?
Yeah, we got to get through the rest of the episode in 5 minutes. Go.
Yeah. Mark, what do you think? Do you think they're good?
Go.
Why do you think? Do you disagree with us?
I enjoyed them, but maybe not as much as y'all did, based on the one sentence I've heard you speak so far.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Great.
Oh, outstanding, because you have no familiarity really with the original series.
Oh.
And then also, had you watched Clone Wars before?
Yeah.
No. Next Generation, I've taken a run at Clone Wars, but never got very far into it. I saw is it just called the Clone Wars? The movie that had baby Jabba in it.
Ah, well.
Good for you.
Thank you for your service.
Hey, thank you for your service.
And I watched the Gennady Tartakovsky series.
Oh.
So I feel like I was biased against this version initially.
Interesting. This is actually, Kenny, there's that episode, the episode with Mace in the Tartakovsky version, where you just is it Ryloth in that one too? Like, is this the Clone Wars version of that? Or
I don't think that.
Okay.
I don't
it's
think
a planet
so,
with like a bunch of a big meadow.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay.
There's a big hammer.
But it's very similar.
And they are, that's right, the big hammer ship. And they're riding like a weird little kangaroo emu. I don't know.
Yeah.
Only Australian creatures. So, oh my God. Sorry. Yeah, but okay, sweet. That makes sense. You've never, right. Yeah. So you're not in the position, not to be like, this is why you don't like it or anything, but this means that you haven't had 2 years of watching the original series and being like, this is us teaching you how to watch the show, or Clone Wars being like, watch where it's come from, where we
and even y'all being like, this is part of a trilogy of episodes. I'm now like, that makes a lot of sense.
Sorry about that.
No, because I was like, they just drop you straight into it, and I was like, that seems vaguely right from when I used to watch.
I did watch this show with my partner Heidi.
Cute.
And she also has not really watched Clone Wars before. And with that intro, she was like, oh, no, I don't like this. This is bad. Which is the exact same feeling that I had. And, still have to a degree, but it's been much lessened considering that I've been watching this now for months.
Intro. Based on the intro.
Yes. Yeah, what do you mean
the intro for the Clone Wars.
Well, the little recap
Dateline, Ryloth. Obi-Wan and Anakin are going through the machine. Then the machine happens to have droids. The droids are capturing Ryloth and chopping off all of their little tails.
Very good. I like the news. I like the newsreel opening. It's very fun.
I don't like it. I think it's bad.
Well, it's not a newsreel.
It's a newsreel.
Propaganda.
It's
propaganda. It's like news from the front.
But there's but that's extra textual analysis.
It's
appropriating aesthetics.
I mean, we're literally talking about a war. We're talking about battles in which any type of war, especially one that is kind of effectively a civil war across the galaxy, a clone war. A civil Clone War, because it's the literal separatists from a republic. You are going to have inherent to kind of war stories, that kind of we're the ones putting ourselves out there to be the goodies. Mm-hmm. They don't do it they're, it's not truly they're, how the beginning of the Revenge of the Sith is they're heroes on both sides. No, but kind of in this show, sometimes you'll see the Republic leaving people behind. But if we're keeping that in mind, as if to say, we want to keep you on our side of the Republic, we're the correct ones versus the separatists, you've been putting out war propaganda. And to keep people feeling encouraged. That's what it is.
Yeah, but Mark loves the intro. He thinks that's the best part of this episode of the Clone Wars.
To be clear, by the way, when you say extra textual, I just assumed that's what it was. I don't think I read that anywhere. Anyway.
Extra textual in the sense that you understand it through cultural osmosis.
What is media?
Yeah, that's kind of everything.
I can tell that Kenny and I are going to be yelling at each other and I don't know.
I like both of these episodes.
We feel really emotional right now.
But the emotional, but the reason that you're able to,
Okay,
boy,
I'll let you explain.
I don't
know how you
because both of your
disentangle
reactions are just like that's just media. To which I'm like, yes, but my emotions make me want to double down because I'm convinced I'm right, which is not necessarily correct.
I mean, I don't think you're not right. Is the weird thing. I think it's like such a weird gray
Mark.
yarn ball of things.
I mean, it is also Star Wars pretty fresh from the prequel, so you can't be entirely sure what the intention is versus George Lucas's weird execution ideas.
Yeah, it did feel very like early 2000s watching it. I was like, you can feel the like extra textual elements of the world.
It didn't help that the entire thing was scored by All American Rejects.
That's true.
It was like, as soon as like he started going in with his lightsaber, it was like, shoom, and it was like, swing, swing from the table. And you're like, wow, look at Mace go.
Look at Mace.
No, I get it. I'm just being defensive because I love it. I think it's fun. And I want people to give things a chance. So.
Yeah, I dug both of these episodes. I'm a little cooler on the Clone Wars ep this week versus the Star Trek episode, which
interesting.
I think the Star Trek episode is like gangbusters, feeling like season 1, season 2 of Star Trek again.
That's the other thing, Mark, just for reference here.
Yeah.
There's that. It's like season 1 of Star Trek is like, ooh, we're cooking with gas. And season 2, you're like, we're still some gas is still here. Yeah. And then season 3, you're like, oh boy.
Oh no.
Oh no. For
It's like
various reasons.
It's like they left the gas on, but they weren't cooking. And so suddenly everyone's like
on fire.
Because everyone's on fire.
Gas high.
Yeah.
Oh, everyone is gas high.
Gas high.
And someone's like about to like light a match and everyone's like, no, like that. So then
they're
you get
Australian.
No. How would an Australian say no in slow motion?
If you want to find out, subscribe to the Patreon.
Hey, Aspen.
Hey, Kenny.
What is an Australian's favorite conjunction?
I don't know. What is it?
Mark?
I don't know.
No.
Nice.
I don't get it.
Because it's a conjunction.
I know. N-O-R.
N-O-R.
North.
Well, conjunction, junction. What's your function? So this episode is like a beautiful, like, drink water in a desert.
Oh, yeah, it felt great coming into it fresh. I was like, I'm enjoying this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Kenny?
Oh, I'm just excited to talk about these episodes.
I'm excited to talk about them too.
Good hot episodes.
Can we just say a thing real quick? Can we just like
always
establish a sort of like norm here of reality?
Yeah.
It's November 19th that we're recording this. Not
Behind
that
the
long
curtain.
ago. Yeah, well, not that long ago. Yeah, I know. People are gonna know. 2 weeks ago, exactly. I drank too much and got really sad. An absolute indicted, impeached criminal rapist was elected to the presidency.
Yeah.
And I feel like conversations around Star Wars and Star Trek cannot be separated from the feelings of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because art is contextual.
Right.
Well, anything that we consume is going to be affected by current events because art cannot live in a vacuum. It's not possible, or else it would lose all meaning.
Which is interesting because earlier you were saying, Mark, you were like, "Oh, Clone Wars feels so like 2000s," which I assume has to do with like Iraq and Afghanistan and like, which absolutely you're on top of it, just in the same way that the original series Star Wars is about Vietnam.
Yeah. Also, I do need to point out that Kenny's very eloquent diagnosis of that did immediately counteract his earlier refutal of outside elements influencing a piece of art.
Yeah.
What you had to say to that? Oh no. He's like,
no.
You got me.
Podcast over.
Yeah, I done got. So sorry.
But by yourself. So that's the best way to get got. The only one smart enough to defeat your own argument was yourself.
It's
That's true. Oh boy.
It's true. Yeah. So I just want to bring that up and just like do a level set, because I'm going to guess we're all having a hard time.
It's extremely awful. My anxiety has gone through the roof.
Right.
It's been extremely miserable, and I dare say I'm attempting to be very easy on myself, because the fight will just get even more intense as the years wane on.
Wax
Go
on.
Proceed.
Wax
All
off.
of the above.
Yeah. And I, it's funny because I was talking to someone about it, because we've had, also for additional context, Mark, I feel like, Mark, you're so great. Sometimes we'll talk about, like, Kenny and I, of like, what is appealing about Star Wars and Star Trek. And I think I often hear a lot, and Kenny, you can tell me if I'm like way off. A lot of people are like, you know what I really love about Star Trek is that it does show hope for a potential future, which can be extremely helpful when you're like, everything is a big old fucking mess right now, right?
Yeah.
And I've often said I'm in kind of a space where the story of Star Wars, of like the little guy and the rebellion, because you're in the midst of it, appeals to me more. Like you were saying, Mark, that like you've seen Andor, and I think that's one of like the best types of stories that Star Wars has, of like on the ground rebellion. And so I think that often is the thing that almost with Star Wars appeals to me. And I think that's still true. And I felt it, and I very angrily was like stating it. But a little small part of me is having a little bit of not a shift, but I wonder if it's like I have to be like, you have to like practice hope. So there is like something, I wonder if there's like a shift for me happening, recognizing fully that the utopic future of Star Trek came after horrors that are detailed in DS9 and like a World War III and so on and so forth. So anyway,
I feel like
being realistic.
My view has always been like almost the opposite, but just because I feel like so much of at least early Star Wars, like, original trilogy, is very like mythic in the sense of like literal myth, and it's monolithic, and it's good and it's evil, and it's, so I feel like, to me, it was always so nice to have that clear distinction of like, oh, we know what the right thing is, and we know what the bad, and so it kind of had the opposite. Whereas Star Trek, to me, always, even just my tangential connection with it, was like, oh, these are real people, and they have to deal with like human stuff. So I got down to that like messier version of things.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, like it's more complex than just like the modern myth. And
I mean, that is the allure of Star Trek for me. Even though they are dealing with all of these lofty, highfalutin sci-fi ideas, at the end of the day, they're still dudes that are drinking coffee, or ladies, or non-binary folks.
Never.
Just drinking coffee and being like, isn't all this Star Trek and hard? However, as I've gotten older, it feels like villains that live within a gray area is charitable, because villains that live in grays don't exist. I feel like villains are outright villains, and we need to stop having media that bothers to find any sympathy or empathy for them.
Interesting, man. And this is, I think this just like goes to show that it's like, especially there's like different seasons of your life personally, what you might be like managing. And then there's also like how the different current events and how that context affects your perception of a thing and how you relate to the thing. How fascinating.
I mean, I feel, as I've said before, and I'll say it again till the cows come home, I feel like folks I feel like anyone that identifies as someone that is on the right wing has manipulated well-intentioned people's empathy in order to manipulate the status quo for themselves, which is extremely unfortunate, thereby putting our marginalized folks and folks that are truly in trouble on the back foot over and over and over again, and having to apologize for being the victim. And that's really unfortunate. That sucks, and it's completely unfair.
Yep. Yes. And, I'm sorry, I don't mean to also take us away from, I think these episodes, the reason, one, I think we just needed to acknowledge it because this is our first episode we're recording since the election.
Yeah.
But also these episodes are about rebellion. They're about inequality, and they're about explicitly about inequality and about the abuse of power and, both explicitly so. And the othering of people, the exploitation of resources and labor, both very explicitly. And I do just want to note, I saw, this is a brag, but I saw the live reading of Revenge of the Sith over the weekend, which, say, friend of the pod, Patrick Cotner, organizes. And it was super fab. And it was... there was lines that were being said from Revenge of the Sith that the entire audience would just collectively groan because of just how clear of a parallel there was. And I'm we can make fun of the politics of the prequels, but ultimately the manipulation of media outlets of political bodies to kind of undermine in a way that's almost fucking stupid is actually so real and relevant of just what does it look like to hold that power. And for people to just be taken by it because they would much rather go after a strong man and a sense of safety and authority, because that safety was the danger was fabricated, thus destroying people's lives in the process. And so people would actually pursue that and vote for that, placing this person in a position of power in order to secure that safety, whether or not it's real, whether there is a threat or not. Right. Mm. So I thought it was wild, and I just wanted to point that out. Cool.
Well, it's also been a recurring historical motif, weirdly, that kind of syncs up with all of the Star Wars trilogies being released. Late 70s into early 80s, early 2000s, and then the late teens.
Oh, geez.
All had these moments of turbulence and things. And
that is, we also do have the as we've noted before, the kind of cycle that's almost reflected in the production of the movies of the neoliberal to fascism cycle that also just seems to happen in the world. That's funny that it happens in the world as well. But every
art reflects the world in which it is made.
And the world it reflects the art. It changes based on the art. Yeah. Yeah, I just want to just kind of note it because, you're right. This is less feeling. The last episode that we watched, we actually talked about the explicit kind of, it was, Innocence of Ryloth. It feels very much like people in the Middle East, American soldiers in Iraq. And there's even racism that's involved inside of it. And oh, look, we can change, But so that's clearly that's the context for that. And we're kind of continuing this here. So this idea, we're talking about, Victor and Ryloth of what is the role of, especially something like the American government, if we're using that as a reflection of coming in and your responsibility to secure the safety of space.
Not only kind of talking about, Mark, we're going to talk about last week's episodes.
Sorry.
Yet again, but the nature, both of them having somewhat of a pandering nature about, wow, they're so naive. One of those naivetes in the Clone Wars episodes kind of being lionized, and in the way to Eden being they were so naive. While also kind of celebrating the status quo, albeit our racist clones kind of changing, but at the same time just being they just needed to meet one good one. The status quo ain't all that bad.
Sure.
And then in these two episodes, rather, I guess our resistance within the Clone Wars is able to talk with the status quo and is able to make some sort of agreement with the status quo in good faith. And in Star Trek, Kirk takes some pretty darn radical interventionist action, pulling an "oops, all imperialism," by forcing both leaders to dig within the mines. And luckily, it works out pretty well because they're able to sniff the gas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, right. Like it's the sort of, in both cases, it is kind of extraordinary that it's like, here's an outside active force coming in and doing, like, being like, here, there is an injustice. Like, obviously, with like the Star Wars episode, it's like, we also need to, this is part of our greater war, and these Twi'leks are collateral for this war. And
it's pronounced Twi'leks.
It's pronounced Twi'leks. Twi'leks.
Twi'leks.
Twi'leks.
Twi'leks. Twi'leks. Twi'leks. Twi'leks.
So Twi'leks. They are collateral of this. But yeah, the sort of statement of like, we're intervening effectively. Like, your people are being murdered and we need help from this resistance force, but you need to be doing this to save your own people.
Yes.
Well, both episodes also had like a, sorry, continue.
No, you say.
Please.
Please, Mark. I'm just a foolish person. I'm a fool.
No, I just thought it was interesting that like both episodes like feature, you know, the hero is coming in and like basically like bartering this, not bartering, that's the word I'm looking for. You know, they bargain for like both sides and like just to kind of find this like peace between these two factions. But in both episodes, they don't do it because it's like the right thing to do. They do it because they have an end goal that they need the agreement to happen for. So
I was about to be like, really, in Star Trek? But then I was like, you're right, because he like needs that shit.
They need to get the thingy.
They need to get the thingy to take it to the place.
The Xenite.
To save the people.
The Xenite gas.
The Xenite gas.
To counter the like plague thing. Botanical plague.
To counteract the other thing.
The other, which also, I gotta say, the episode started and I was like, oh, we're gonna get a botanical plague. That sounds cool. And then they're like, no.
You're gonna get
this
forced
same
labor.
thing just happened in Requiem for Methuselah.
It's true. It did. But this one was better. Well,
yes. Yeah.
No, it wasn't. We liked Requiem for Methuselah. No,
we did. This one's better.
This one is better, though.
Requiem for Methuselah is good. This one is much better.
In terms of like saying interesting stuff. Yeah, a lot of what happened.
In terms of being good, I think this episode of Star Trek was better.
Awesome. In terms of like actually like being art.
TV is art, actually.
TV is art.
TV is art. Someone asked me yesterday if I didn't have to work a 9 to 5, what would I do? And I was like, probably just make art. And I meant make like improv and acting art. And he was like, oh yeah, I could see you being like an artist. You seem very like creative and visual. And I was like, no. Listen, it's art. It's all art.
But also the people in Stratos, that's all they do in the Cloud City is to make art.
Okay.
I take naps.
Okay.
If you ask me.
Naps and art combined.
Naps and art.
No,
just naps.
Art.
So how can you take a nap if you're not awake?
Oh.
How can you take a nap if you're dead?
You should have called me a philosopher at the beginning of this episode.
Wow.
Whoa.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
This is bringing up a great point, right? Which is like, so this future utopia version of
Utopia.
Zootopia.
We gotta say
Zootopia.
Zootopia. What a freaking centrist piece of propaganda. Terrible movie.
Caps.
Y'all seen Zootopia?
Yeah, I've seen Zootopia.
It's such a centrist piece of propaganda. I remember when that movie came out, people were like, actually a great movie. It's very relevant about race. And I watched that and I was like, y'all see the same movie that I did?
Calm down. Not
you. Is it directed by Paul Verhoeven, though?
Verhoeven. Verhoeven.
I find that the symbolism of the fox is like Jesus, and the hot one is like a. I think I'll actually have to bleep that one. I don't like the fact that I just need to.
It was an accurate impression. You had to.
It was an accurate impression. It's definitely something that Paul Verhoeven would say.
That was so funny. It's gonna be even funnier with the bleep. In this, the utopia of Star Trek is possible because of it being in a post-resource world, right? The idea is that you could just replicate anything. So what's the point of money? What's the point? What? Am I just what?
Technically, we're not at replicators.
Okay, sorry. I just because I watched Lower Decks and there's like an episode where they're on an episode where they're on like a planet. That's just we're on an episode. I'm like, okay, it's really I'm like listen.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess in our extra textual understanding of it, like,
ooh la la, who are you? Me?
Yeah, right. But in this case,
sexy Gungan.
In this case, like. This is like an accurate representation. Like this world, these cloud heads, like this world here is that they can have the life they want, where they don't have to work, and all they have to do is just like be happy, just art and music, and just being a gentle, sweet lady with a Christina Aguilera dirty air up top, and like they can just do these things, right? Like because other people that they actively are like these little dum-dums are literally doing the physical manual labor below them on the planet below to get them the resources they need. And therefore, like the money, right? Is what I say to that. Which is extremely right now and all time.
Yeah.
And forever.
And forever. It's just the everything right now. So down to the like the poor treatment, like the abusing terms around things like evolution to excuse treatments of people, right? And of course, it's revealed that this gas in its pure form actually like decreases like cognitive ability and like increases emotional, like probably like enlarges the amygdala or something. I didn't say that. That's what I decided because I am a social work degree. Sorry, I'm talking so much. I think
I'm thinking about that in relation to food deserts. And
yes.
Yeah, it's the same thing, right?
Well, and they blame it on, they're like, it's evolution. They're just little dum-dums, and this is what they are like. This is their lot in life. It's very fucking like Brave New World, actually. Instead of it being like fabricated, it's just like, but they can
Brave New World, a book.
Sure is. Sure is. And they can excuse this behavior, but like that, like a lot of the ways that we have literally excused slavery is through the same bad arguments around like false scientific arguments around evolution. And I just did air quotes there for people who are listening, right? Like a misunderstanding of it, as opposed to something like a food desert you're talking about, where it's like environmental factors, which are going to affect your ability to say move forward in life because you didn't get enough food, because you don't have access to the right education, or you're in a constant state of high cortisol, right? Anyway.
You don't have access to clean air.
Right.
Because clean air is a scarcity. Aspen, remind me, where do you...
Where do I live? Where I live?
A notoriously clean air city.
Oh my God.
Clean.
Yeah, truly. Los Angeles, they call it the city of being able to see to the ocean. The other day I could. It's because it rained and it like cleared out the smog.
And anytime I see pictures of LA, I'm like, oh, look at that beautiful fog. And I'm like, oh, that's not fog.
Wait, Aspen sends you pictures of LA?
Do you want some?
I want some. Why don't you send me pictures?
I'll send you a picture right now. Let me send you a picture. I'm sorry.
I get to talk to Aspen about whatever we talk about, which is a lot. Unbelievable.
We only talk about LA and the smog in it.
Okay.
Cahuenga.
Okay, I just texted you pictures from a hike.
Yep.
You're welcome. Oh, you don't have Instagram, except you have our Instagram. You have a Trek Words Pod Instagram.
Yeah, but it's not on my phone. Because I did Instagram Reels on behalf of my partner Heidi, because she's frequently on Instagram Reels, and so she sends me Reels, and sometimes I just have to. And so I hopped on there. I lost an hour of my day, and I was just like, "Nope,
I
gotta get this off my phone now."
Okay, you're a better person than literally a lot of us. Mark doesn't have Instagram.
I certainly am. Thank you so much, Aspen. Oh my god.
Oh my god. Jesus Christ. Sorry, I feel like I have to. So anyway, I hear what you're saying, which is that because I live in a city that has a lot of particulates in the air, my cognitive development is delayed.
Mark, do you know what city she? Do you know what Mark?
I've seen lots of pictures, but I don't.
What is the Aspen? If you could clarify what city that you possibly.
I live in Pasadena. Stop it! Stop it!
Sexy Gungan. Sexy Gungan. Sexy Gungan.
Okay.
Pasadena is the sexy Gungan of California.
Notoriously, I believe Arnold Schwarzenegger was the first one that coined that phrase.
That's true. Back in '96.
I should have said Gray Davis. That would have been a better reference. Such a dunce. Gray Davis.
You're such a dunce.
The governor before Arnold Schwarzenegger, they notoriously had a recall election, which allowed Arnold Schwarzenegger to then become president because no one had faith in Gray Davis's ability to lead this great state of California.
California. Wait, let me go back to what you said. You're a dunce.
Yeah.
Much like how they considered them to be dunces on the planet. They call them troglodytes. At first I thought they were saying... Yes. I thought they were saying troglodytes weirdly, and
they do reference it. They're like, that's of course an abbreviation of an
troglodyte. Yeah.
Which is fascinating. There's so many questions. There's just so many questions, because if the word troglodytes exists in this culture, what does that mean in terms of is this a human colony? What does this mean about? But don't worry.
I did wonder because the troglodytes. I was like, are they supposed to be aliens? Because they're 100% human, but they have long hair, long sexy hair, and then they wear little visors. And that was the only thing that was like...
They wear little Captain Cold type visors.
Yeah.
They wear them because it's so dark in the mines that they...
the sun hurts their eyes when they go outside.
Right. It's a lot
miners, not miners.
It's like in...
Remember that, Aspen? Remember that reference that I just made?
Miners, not miners from Hot Fuzz.
Galaxy Quest.
It's usually Hot Fuzz.
A great movie, because they stumble upon. We'll cover it on our Galaxy Quest versus Spaceballs episode. But they stumble upon, because they're trying to get another beryllium sphere for the spaceship, and so Alan Rickman and the crew stumble upon this group of miners, but they look like children, and so they're like, yeah, they look like kids, and Alan Rickman goes, miners, not miners.
Incredible.
Guy Fleegman is the name I give at a coffee place if I don't want to give my real name. And they're like, what's your name? I always say Guy Fleegman.
Have you seen Galaxy Quest yet, Aspen?
Yeah, it's just been a while. I just haven't seen it. I've only seen it one time.
They're not called aliens. They're called termites. Anyways, we're not here for a Galaxy Quest.
Too bad.
This is Quest Balls each week.
So yeah.
Well, not to just keep bringing up the fact that Aspen lives in California, but the genesis of this episode was actually influenced by the class stratification that original series writer David Gerrold found. It was influenced by specifically he living in Beverly Hills, or not in Beverly Hills, but in Los Angeles at the time.
Yeah.
Was like really frustrated about the fact that there are those folks that are literally living higher than folks that are living in Watts, who are having to drive into Beverly Hills and take care of literally everything and then drive back to Watts. Right. That very specific thing. And so that was the genesis of this episode. And it was originally going to be Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Chekhov, and Uhura yet again, not getting some screen time,
despite being a person that rules.
It's true. And then instead of kind of, caves. They would have crashed in a mid-20th century slum. There is trash and litter in the street. Gaunt-eyed children stare at them. Poverty and despair are very apparent. Instead of troglodytes, they would have been known as mannies, otherwise known as manual laborers. And Aspen, get ready. This would have been sick. For centuries, the mannies have mined the dilithium crystals.
Dude, this would have been better.
The ship.
Isn't that a Star Wars thing?
No, that's a Star Trek thing. That's the thing that makes the ship go.
Oh my God, that would have been. Because I live for like time travel shit. That if they found out that like the reason they can do what they're doing now is because of this suffering past.
Yeah.
Oh, I would have died. And
then the end of the episode. David Gerald says, as featured in These Are the Voyages, season 3 by Mark Cushman and Susan Osborne. They interviewed him, and David Gerald said, in the story, we solved the immediate problem of getting some kind of cooperation between the two cultures. But as we were leaving, Kirk says, well, we've helped another planet. And McCoy says, yes, but how many children will die in the meantime?
Oh, Jesus.
I do feel like that's kind of where the episode, which I liked, left off. There were a lot of things they obviously had to do story-wise in order to be able to conveniently kind of wrap up a lot of plot threads, right? Where it's like, oh, there has to be a reason that these people are like not as intelligent or whatever, and it has to be something that can be solved immediately.
Yes.
But I did like how they left the like cliffhanger of just like, we're going to have talks once my people gain their intelligence back, and they just kind of like left it being like, it's not a neat bow. And it was like, ooh, I like that.
It was like intense too. Like that dude, the cloud guy was like, don't fucking come back. Rage, like absolute rage. He hated Kirk so much. What? I don't know. Yeah. Like it was basically like, if you come back, like this is for us to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting too, because
I agree.
It's interesting. It's a very like, we were just talking about this, like, it's interference, but it's clearly for a reason, like you said, like there is lots of reasons why, because they need to get this material. And also there is huge perceived injustice. I mean, there is a huge injustice here, and there are people literally fighting against conditions. Mm-hmm. I do like this sort of the calling to the idea that we're going to find any reason we can to say that the people that we are making work in these spaces and do this manual labor are not as smart as us, is not as good as us. So I think it's actually I thought it was very thoughtful and interesting to actually have it be a physical thing, right? Because to relate it to current events, who are the people that do our manual labor? Who are the people that pick our food, right? It's typically migrants, it's immigrants, whether they are documented or no. And you find reasons to say these people are not as good as you. Some people say that. Hi, what's up?
I do like the episode, though, did take the time to be like, obviously the like city councilor or whatever, I can't remember what his role was.
That dude, that bro, that club bro.
That guy.
That club bro.
Had an active animosity for the troglodytes. Whereas they also showed like his daughter being like, I don't have like I don't hate them, but also they are worse than us. Just that's the way it is. And it wasn't this like hatred from her perspective, but it was still as harmful, if not more harmful.
Yes, Mark. Yes, this sort of like.
I mean, we're talking about earlier the naivete, and then she lives in blissful or possibly willful ignorance, especially considering that Vana is like within her sphere of influence, but Droxine is not extending an olive branch, because just assuming that this is the way, because that's the danger of a set status quo. I think we just kind of get settled into the thing. But luckily the neutral Starfleet can come in and be like, pretty fishy. It's pretty fishy. This thing that's going on.
There was there was a moment in the episode, I just remember, again, as I kind of alluded to, they obviously, like, in order to fit this entire parable in 50 minutes or whatever, there have to be just like easy outs. But there was a moment about halfway through the show where Vana gets captured and they're like torturing her to figure out where the the
Yeah, like the
MacGuffin,
other
the
rebels
Zenite
are.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Kirk and them are always like, that's horrible, that's not worth it. And the city councilor douche guy is like, but if I have to torture her to save like an entire planet full of people. And I was like, there is a really interesting discussion of push-pull of like, if there isn't like a easy out solution that isn't torture, it's like, where does this, where do these things start to go and where do those conversations go? It kind of reminded me of like a Battlestar Galactica reboot scenario.
Mark, wrong show. This is Star Trek versus Star Wars. If you want to listen to our Battlestar Galactica versus Stargate episode, you can listen earlier in our catalog.
Mark, you must be so embarrassed.
I thought it was a long podcast. I'm so sorry.
Oh my God. Wow. Bye.
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 I mean, Star Trek can vacillate between we have to save all these people or we won't let one person die for the sake of all of us. Depends. This week, it is we can't let one person suffer at the hands to save all these people. But luckily, it all works out. Don't interrogate it too much.
Right. I mean, we could look at it as Kirk's like, when has torture ever worked? Just coming from a practical perspective, it doesn't. It truly, studies show, just doesn't. Because people will just start to say whatever, just right. So, but yeah, no, there is a sort of, you know what that's making me think of though, is I'm not saying that like protest is putting, say, people's lives in danger, like innocent people's lives in danger. But, when there are protests and protest is doing what it should do, which is actively disrupt the flow of life because we're trying to draw attention to the injustice of a thing. And that's not going to work unless we are kind of actively doing that. And I feel like there's a similar sort of vibe there, which is just like, well, you're hurting people by protesting for your literal rights in your literal life. Like you're the selfish one because you're hurting these other people. And in this case, Vana is like they're like, she actively says at the beginning, she's like, they think that the Enterprise is there to terrorize them. Right.
That was very
so even from her perspective, she's just like, this isn't actually like, she is not seeing it as like, this is your goal, right? She like, and also they're going to do whatever they can to try to infiltrate, to try to get these rights, right? Whatever that means.
I love that she like at no point takes like the quote unquote like high road, right? Where I feel like so many shows would be like, she's going to trust Kirk, she's going to do this. And the whole time she's like, nope, you're the enemy, you're the bad guy. Like, I'm looking after my people. And I was like, that's cool.
Love that bitch. I love her. She was, frankly, the hottest lady that's ever been on, except for Uhura on Star Trek.
And
it's her vibe. Oh, except for that one lady from Troyanis or whatever. Anyway.
Alana Troyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she could step on me repeatedly.
Whoa.
But at the same time, if Kirk is our protagonist because he's the enlightened centrist that is coming along and being like, isn't this situation a little bit silly? Kind of pulling sorry, Mark, let that be your last battlefield, albeit in a much less severe form by going,
I can't remember.
The split sides, black on one side, white on the right.
Black and white, white and black. Got it. Yeah.
And the whole episode hand-wringing itself of being like, aren't both sides silly?
Oh my God.
But then I believe this episode is able to kind of pull out of that by
it does
putting them. It's the conditions of the gas.
Yeah.
That the folks that are living on Stratos have been inflicting on them, and all of them suffer for it, which is it just felt really great to be like Kirk is getting affected by this, because so many times Kirk is just like, the love of my ship will pull me through.
Yeah.
No,
Kirk's the last one.
No one is invincible from this.
And I like that he didn't realize it either, because as an audience member, I was like, I don't think he's like, I was in the same boat where you're like, he's not being affected. And you're like, oh, he is.
Yeah, which is great.
Very fun.
This scene where he's like, it's like because at that point he's like trapped Councilman Dude and Vana in these mines with him. And there's like this shot of him, and you could already tell he's starting to like lose it, because like he's standing there like this, so like his hand, like the gun's like right here. like a little squirrely dude from a gangster film who's just like, hey, what you doing? You got a cigarette? Like it's like his
Like
vibe.
from a film noir almost.
I got film noir.
It's like Aspen's favorite episode of Star Trek, Piece of the Action.
God damn, I don't like that episode.
It's a great episode. Dynamite. What
It's
a
not
romp.
that good. I don't like
What a romp.
gangsters. I don't like gangsters.
Oh gosh, dang it!
What?
I just forgot that I forgot to research the French Resistance,
Interesting. Oh, for Star Wars.
which I feel like is good enough of a time to segue into talking about the Star Wars plant, but also like,
Yeah.
look, come on,
Yeah.
they're pulling all the time from World War II aesthetics, starting from the very first Star Wars, the motion picture. And now the Twi'leks are French. They're French now. They're French now. They're French now.
The accents were distracting.
Oui.
They are. They are.
Oui.
French. They are. I don't know which point they're officially made French. I think the thing is that like Twi'leks very infrequently talk like in original Star Wars.
Certainly.
I feel like they typically are marginalized enslaved people, like especially female Twi'leks. Like,
Yeah.
like
Well, because in episode one of Palpatine's helpers is a Twi'lek.
right.
And he seems to be an American sounding dude.
You're right. He is.
But then as they covered in the Filoni Zoni, George was like, George wants all races to sound the same and be reflective of the exact same culture. So now all Twi'leks are French now.
They're French now. They have
They're
their
Is that
own
a real
language.
thing? Are they like genuinely, like intentionally coded French?
Here they are.
I mean, they
And from here on out, except for
from here on out, they speak. I'll just tell you a little bit in Rebels,
Star Wars Rebels.
Star Wars Rebels, Hera Syndulla, so daughter of Sham Syndulla.
Sham Syndulla.
Sham Syndulla, the
Sham
resistance
Syndulla.
leader.
Sham Syndulla. You know you need Sham Syndulla.
I know you need New York. Sham Syndulla. So Hera Syndulla, who's part of this, she doesn't have an accent because she's like neutralized it. And then when she goes back home and is like talking to her dad and talking to her family, the French accent comes back. And like when she gets like mad, the French accent comes back, which is actually extremely relatable. Like as a person who, like when I would like talk to my mom, so the deeply Southern accent, you know. So.
No, completely honest. I did not even clock that they had French accents. When I was like, those accents were distracting, I was being
wouldn't have
facetious.
either.
Yep, they're French accents.
It makes sense in retrospect, but I did not think about it at the time.
And yeah, they're speaking another language, not speaking French. Like they're speaking a Twi'lek language, like a Rylothian thing. But they all have this, and that is who they are.
They are French now.
They are French now.
They are French now.
Before I ask you a question, Mark, you're right about like the World War II aesthetics though, but I still think like, especially with this is more the like back to like resistance fighting, like, which I think is actually more in line with Middle East, like Afghanistan, Iraq war stuff. Like,
that's interesting because even though the Twi'leks are coded as French with their accents, at the same time pulls one of science fiction's favorite things, which is the music, and it's vaguely Middle Eastern.
Yeah, which is just othering in general sometimes. And
I do wonder if we're going to make them French as an intentional choice to be like, we're going to code them as like a white culture so that we can't be accused of anything else.
Interesting.
Now, Aspen, you and I both know that would never stop George Lucas.
That's true. George would not give a shit. As we know, since Nemoidians have very specifically Asian accents, he doesn't give a shit. And one time, a cousin of Jabba the Hutt sounded like, what's his
Truman
name?
Capote.
Truman Capote. That's not racism. That's just homophobia.
Yeah. Zero the Hutt in the Clone Wars film that you saw and loved and are currently wearing a t-shirt of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that you've got, these posters everywhere. You have it tattooed on your chest?
Yeah. It's all the way down to the navel.
Wow, Jabba's child?
Whoa.
Wow, that's
Jabba.
commitment. Ahsoka in a tube top?
It's weird how prominent the Ahsoka and a tube top thing is, Mark. I would prefer that you put your shirt back on for that one.
I'm
you
going to leave it off
stop
for the
her?
rest of the pod. And I'll show you my back tattoos at the end.
So, Mark, how did you, as a Star Wars fan,
Yeah,
this
you
being,
love Star Wars.
you love Star Wars, having
Yeah.
like watched a little bit of Clone Wars.
Mhm.
You said you said you probably might not have liked this as much as us, but how did you find this episode? How did you find this episode?
It was online. It was very easy to find.
Damn it! I got
Sexy Gungan.
We're having fun here. We're making
Oh
jokes.
my God, we have
We're
fun.
having fun. Look at us.
Who would have thought?
Well, I don't know. It's one of those things where I feel like my viewing of the Star Wars episode was very much because I watched the Star Trek episode first.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I was just
That's
like,
the same way I do it.
Me too. I don't know.
so I just feel like I was kind of slammed over the head by the stark juxtaposition of the styles of storytelling and just the pacing and the assumed target audience. Because when the Clone Wars episode ended, I was just like, oh, we're done. Like, oh, that was a lot very quickly. And I kept waiting for it to like dig deeper as the Star Trek episode did.
No, again, yeah, I guess in this case, we have a listener, Aaron, who is like, shouldn't you be listening to these? And like, if there's going to be an arc, you watch the whole arc, and we're just like, no.
No.
I mean, it was fully. It's like I fully grasped and understood it, and there was no moment where I was like, "Who is this character?" I was like, "Yeah, I get it. It's ongoing."
It's for what it's worth. It's an arc. It's not a to be continued.
Episodes would be less jarring if they didn't have the newsreel, simply because there is a reintroduction to all of the things post newsreel to kind of recenter us. Because there's so much exposition up at the top, and then the dramatic storytelling takes charge.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
So yeah, this actually, I wonder if like I'll watch Star Trek first because it's longer and I know it's longer. So that's typically, I don't know why, it's like typically why I watch it first. And then I watch Star Wars. So I understand the feeling of like, I just watched like 50 minutes and now I'm just watching like 25. And the storytelling of the thing is so frankly concise and can be a lot more action oriented. Like Star Trek will sometimes, especially in the season 3, it'll be like, it feels like they're filling time sometimes. Like you're just like, cool, this could have been a nice little tight 30-minute app, but we can't do that.
In season 3 of Star Trek, there'll be a 7-minute scene of Kirk being like, surely you can't be crazy too, right? You are? Oh my gosh, but surely you can't be crazy too, right? What?
The only time it's ever worked to just stay atmospheric and be like, what's happening? Is that one where they end up at the OK Corral? Anyway, you should watch that episode. That's the only one I'll excuse for having a lot of like, because it's very atmospheric moments of quiet.
Spectre of the Gun.
So good.
I mean, this Star Trek episode did have like I don't know, like 10 minutes in, did have a sequence in which Spock just recapped everything that had just been happening in like a weird, like dreamy sequence.
That's like it never happened. And I was like,
has never happened before. It was wonderful.
Kind of ruled. We haven't talked about. I'm not gonna. I want us to talk about Star Wars, but I
Aspen,
just want to say,
don't do it, Aspen.
Okay, fine. I'll hold it.
No, I want you to talk about it right now.
No.
Please, I really need you to talk about it.
I'm gonna talk about it when we get to.
Please, talk about it right now. Please, I just need you to talk about it right now, or else I'm gonna lose my mind.
The Star Trek episode was written.
Sexy Gungan.
I like that Spock gets to have a love interest.
Oh, that's you're right. We can talk about that later.
We can talk about it later. I just like it. I just like it when it happens. It doesn't happen. So it's nice. Sometimes it's just devastating when it does.
It's devastating.
Every time. This time it wasn't devastating.
It wasn't devastating this time.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so Star Wars.
I will say I was very into the Star Wars episode almost immediately. Just like the little like battle on the cliffside and all the little like the moment when the little back of the troop transport drops down and the little like walkers pop up and start running, I was just like, it like blew the back of my little like 5-year-old brain open. I was just like, I love every second of this.
I will say this episode, there was a moment in this episode that felt like the way I felt when I saw Phantom Menace for the first time when I was 9. There was something wild. It's like the music, the way the camera Sorry, Kenny, yes.
Mace Windu breaks glass
Yes.
with the Force.
That was the coolest thing.
It was really cool. What I liked about it is that Mace Windu used the Force and he broke it to glass.
This is why I was like, is this kind of like Tartakovsky, like that episode? Because you know how he's like flattens in that. In this one, he is like, it was one of those moments where you're like, oh, that's right. That's why they talk about Mace Windu as being one of the most powerful Jedi. Like what he can do, like they do 100%.
Where?
Yes. I
Where?
just feel like that's the thing.
Where?
Oh, like there's something Anakin says once, like even more powerful than like Master Windu. Like he is seen as an extremely powerful like Jedi. Like I feel like that's I didn't just make that
but
up.
like the prequels say a whole
Not by
bunch
it.
of stuff, Aspen. Like
Well-
there's heroes on both sides.
But this
Evil is
episode has
everywhere.
that's true. This episode, and somehow Palpatine returned. That's not the prequels.
They got paid so much money
money.
to write that line.
But
I hope that they at least gave to a great charity because of how much money that they
Right,
gave
for
or
the line.
founded an
But
organization,
they just need a
volunteered.
reason. It's not the point of the story.
That does what? Oh, never mind. We're not talking about Rise of Skywalker.
Mace
That's a
is-
different podcast.
Mace,
Sorry.
Mace is so strong in this. Like he is doing things that other Jedi could
Like
never
break
do.
glass.
Like break glass. Like
I do
there's
like
one
that
point.
little stuff. Like I love the little things when you're like, oh, this is a power set. And we're going to find all little weird ways you don't see normally to like exploit it. And I love that just like, I'm going to pop the glass to get this guy out of there. It was very cool.
Oh God, so cool.
So cool.
There's bigger stuff. A bit like
Yes.
he doesn't feel overpowered, but he like I had chills. Like I think at one point, like I think when they near to the end of the episode, when they get into the city, you know, it goes across. Oh, that's what it was. Oh my God, there's that scene where because they're on that bridge, that like plasma bridge, I don't know, and so that bridge can just disappear if they power it down, right? They've like Trojan horsed it. Okay, for people who haven't seen this, it's one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. They hide inside and like, but then like the droids find them and they pop out and they're like fighting, and then they turn off the bridge.
Listen
And-
to Aspen, Mark.
And
Hi.
he throws two of the clones who like he force pushes them so they grab onto the cliff. He launches himself up, grabs onto a droid that's on his little flying Segway.
Stab. It's called a stab.
And then he launches himself over. And during that entire sequence, the sound and the music just drops out.
Like Saving Private Ryan style.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
And so you're right. The aesthetics, World War II, it's like a combination of World War II, like Middle East, like kind of stuff for sure. That being like, yeah, Saving Private Ryan, very real. It was one of the coolest things I've seen in Star Wars. Like something about the way it was shot, like the fluidity of it, like, oh God. And again, I think the sound did a lot. The lack of sound was extraordinary. I was like, is this art? So anyway.
Yeah, the choreography, I feel like the whole episode of just like the action and the movement and the thing, it was like the whole time you are just like, I get y'all are very good at your jobs because this
Right.
is very dynamic and very cool.
And it hasn't like we're not that many episodes in, and the animation has gotten so much better so quickly.
Aspen, we are a bunch of episodes in because the next episode is the last episode of season 1.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess in my mind, I'm like, we're only in first season, like, because in my mind, I was like, it doesn't get good until like 5, but it's good,
What?
like animation wise.
The show doesn't get good until season 5. Dude.
You just gotta get through.
Right.
Like,
give it. You gotta
Four
give it
seasons.
4 years. The show.
Last 5 minutes
How
of
many
the last
seasons? There's
episode.
only 7 years.
So good.
That's season 5 though. So good, dude.
So
And even
good.
then, it's like the second half of 5th season, dude.
I would actually say release like one episode in season 5.
I'm not gonna tell you
But
which
that's-
one though.
I could tell you which one, but it's one where it's
When
just
you-
one
when
long
you-
shot.
when you
no
watch it,
cuts.
though-
No cuts,
Oh.
long take. Quaron could have directed it, but he didn't.
Coulda.
Quaron.
Quaron is the good one. Inuritu is the one that's bad. Quaron bothers to cut stuff up.
Oh,
Wait, isn't Quran Children of Men?
yes, but
yes, but even then,
in-
the whole
in
movie
Ratu-
wasn't a big long shot.
Yes.
He
But
used
in
that to for success in immersion, as opposed to Inuritu,
Who-
where
talking about
when-
Birdman.
We're talking about Birdman now.
Mm.
It's Birdman now. It's Birdman now.
It's
Where
Birdman.
he did it in Birdman, I was like,
Like
oh,
Birdman.
okay, I get it. It's theatrical. And then he does it in The Revenant, and I'm like, what is this?
Oh.
Why
I
are
don't
you
like
doing
it.
this?
I don't like long takes. Full stop.
What
Hot
about
take.
I don't like
Yeah.
long takes.
What
They're
about
coarse and rough and
1917?
irritating.
And
You
kids
get it
everywhere.
everywhere.
what about- that was cute. Look at you.
In 1917, I find it creates distance from me.
Distance.
Yeah.
You think so too?
Yeah. It also breaks the narrative and does make sense structurally because of real time.
I thought it created a sense of intimacy and immediacy. Wild.
I
Kenny
think
and I have completely opposite views of like intimacy and distance. It's
Interesting.
wild.
yes.
And that's why y'all have
Uh,
never dated.
It's
true.
true.
It's the only reason.
The only reason.
the only reason.
Whoa, he said with a chuckle.
Heidi's gonna kill me for even joking about this.
That's right.
Toxic.
What was I thinking about?
What are you thinking about? What were you thinking about?
I was thinking
What are you
about,
thinking about?
because you've seen I Saw the TV Glow, right, Aspen?
I actually haven't. I'm afraid to watch it. I'm
Yeah,
actually
same
afraid
here.
to watch it. I think I have to like be in a deeply like
God.
emotionally like well state.
I mean,
think.
this recent aesthetic of movies where I find that all of these movies are a good portion of movies that are supposedly raw and emotional. I find them quite distant. I forget what it was, but I was making the argument that those films that are kind of operating sparsely and visually distant for Aspen, and I forget what the example is, that makes you feel immersed in a specific emotionality. Meanwhile, it feels completely foreign to me. But a world that is completely wall-to-wall dialogue and very close up, I'm like, great, this feels familiar. This feels very raw. This feels very emotional. Perhaps it's because I need someone to be unsettled and just kind of slap me upside the head in terms of being like, it's his emotion, which is entirely possible.
Well, except for 1917, a film that I probably, but like the other ones we're talking about, I Saw the TV Glow. We were talking about Past Lives.
Oh yeah,
All
I
of Us
think it was Past
Strangers.
Lives where
All of those films, like two of them particularly, queerness, like trans identities. One of them, I feel like very focused on a story about a woman. And that's not to say like there's inclusion factor, but I wonder if it's like, and I say this not in the way it's going to sound, but I wonder if perhaps they are not stories that are resonant for you.
How dare you?
Actually startled me.
Whereas for me, they're like, I've never felt so seen kind of things.
It's me.
I mean,
It's me.
that's absolutely possible.
All of the Strangers made me have a total breakdown.
I watched both of those movies.
No.
I saw All of Us Strangers twice in
I haven't
theaters.
seen
Because
it.
I
love to
could
brag.
I could literally never. I was like, I'm never going to watch that film again. I was like, I can't. I just can't.
And because it
watch
was
movie.
at such a distance for me, I was like, I can watch that again.
I was like, I feel like my heart has been torn out and shredded.
Meanwhile, like, I can never watch Smile 2 again.
Was it
I
bad?
can't watch Smile.
It was
1 again.
great. I'm never going to watch
Oh,
it
yeah?
ever again.
End of Smile 1 made me want to kill someone.
Oh man, the end of Smile 2, I was just like, hell yeah. It's a
Wow.
great ending.
So Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Sorry.
So we haven't really talked about the actual structure of the Resistance and what it
Yeah.
serves in relation. We talked about at length the political structure within the Cloud Miners, probably because it's a little bit more plainly stated,
Sure.
as opposed to there's a resistance and then there's the people in power that are out of touch, and I guess there's the occupying force being the separatists.
Yeah, because there's the senator from Ryloth.
Orn
who's like-
Frita.
Orn Frita. You know him, you love him. Yeah, who is, I
Classic
think,
Orn.
representing probably an elite that is like not listening to the needs of people. I'm pretty sure it's what it is, unless I was making that up. And
Absolutely. I think yet another example of shorthand filmmaking. How do we show that this corrupt senator is corrupt? You make him a big fat
you make him
fag.
fat.
In a big billowing robe.
Yeah. Yeah, he is.
You can't just have a character.
It's a fat cat.
You can't just have a character that's overweight.
Yeah.
Like Lower Decks does. Though she does command Starbase 80. But she's so nice.
It was interesting that, like, comparing the two episodes, it was like, because in the Star Trek episode, the, like, Enterprise crew meet the kind of like splintered faction, the kind of freedom fighters / terrorists, whatever point of view kind of thing. But they meet them first and then meet the kind of like wealthier cloud people. And it was reversed in Star Wars where they meet this like, or at least maybe the audience. We see the like senators first and their perspective of the kind of like freedom fighters. And then we meet them second, which was an interesting perspective shift.
Right. Because it's like Syndulla was characterized by the senator as, he's like power hungry and he wants to unseat me and like these are dangerous and this is going to be a problem. He's uncontrollable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Like we got that impression first and then working with them. Interestingly, the like troglodytes or whatever, like their first impressions of them are they tried to like take them captive and then they get
drop kicks one of them, which is my favorite moment of the episode.
Oh my gosh, there's one guy in that fight scene who is possibly one of the most thrilling things that I've seen in terms of fight choreography in Star Trek. There's one guy who on frame left just launches himself into the frame and then hits Kirk or whoever Kirk's stunt double is. And it was just like, there's so many world building questions. What just happened? Is there a trampoline that's placed there in real life? What does that say about the world building right there? Is there a rock that is placed there? How did he get so far? Did the troglodytes just have built up muscles right there because of working with their hands? Anyways, we're talking about Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
Sorry. Yeah.
Star Wars.
I mean, but in both cases, it's like, look at these monsters. Now, they're maybe not monsters so much in Star Wars, but it's like, heathens, like uncivilized. And like, I think it's pretty clear. It's like Syndulla is just like, hey, you're not like aware of or providing the kind, like he's kind of like a populist leader, right? Like, but like, maybe not that kind.
It is interesting because like you do get the perspective from the senator first, but then they also take the time to have the moment where you see the like graveyard and they're like, oh, these are their dead and they've buried them and they had loss and all this stuff. And then like they take a kind of a nicely long time in such a rapidly paced episode to like kind of like drop feed these little moments before you finally meet Sham and then you get to like decide for yourself once you see him.
Clone Wars is so good, you guys. I like watched the episode. I was like you, Kenny. I was like, oh, I think the last episode was better. And now I'm like talking about it. I'm like, did you know that this episode was so cool?
So cool.
The sound dropping out on the Mace Windu part might be the best scene of the entire season.
God, it's
hands down.
But you're right. Like, yeah, like they're uncivilized. But then the show is like, hey. Perhaps not. Perhaps they actually are. And maybe this just looks like...
Hey, it's Fat Albert. Sorry.
Thank you. Show. So sorry.
It's a different show.
Wow. An example of a fat main character.
I'm Syndulla.
It's a weird choice. Not French, but great choice.
Great choice.
I'm Syndulla.
I mean... It's very.
Do you like me anymore, Aspen? Aspen, do you like me anymore?
Oh no.
Do you like me?
You know what this reminds me of?
Oh.
The moment that I was in college and I was driving in the car with my mother, and so she like found a moment to like trap me, and that's when she was like, "Do you even believe in God anymore?" That's what this feels like.
Your friend Kenny being like, do you like me as a person? You're like, I feel trapped. By my mother. Because my friend asked a vulnerable question.
Name one way that you feel trapped by anything that I do, Aspen.
Sexy Gungan.
Again, it's like poetry. So if they rhyme,
I love you so much, and I really like you too. I like hanging out with you and talking to you.
That's a real. That's really sweet. Thank you.
You're nothing like my mother.
I didn't think I was until now, Aspen.
But how are they similar? List all the ways they're similar.
Do I?
Maybe.
Blue eyes. Blue eyes.
Old blue eyes over here.
Oh, blue eyes. And is Oklahoma the South?
Yes.
The South. Both states that have panhandles, weirdly.
Whoa.
True.
Yeah.
That's a unique one.
Very true.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, the Florida of the center.
Anyway.
Maybe
Yeah.
more meth in Oklahoma? Who's to say?
I think probably.
Yeah.
There's probably more like bath salts in Florida.
I agree. Because
And-
it's wetter down there.
Alligators, yeah. Oh.
Also, you were making a point, Aspen, and we got sidetracked on
No,
all of
I don't know. I think I yes, just the piece of like the othering, because it's funny because it could be that we would look at it as the separatists are this sort of like class that is, I mean, the separatist group in this case is the like Wattown Boar. It's like the droid guy, and then and they are, oh god, why do I always forget what he represents? Like
I got it written down because I crossed it out twice. The Techno Union,
the Techno Union, that's it.
which
The
is
Techno Union.
because it also brings up, with the introduction of chicken walkers, it made me ask a world building question.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Love a
they're
chicken
tiny
walker.
chicken walkers. They're more like little chickie walkers. Chicken walkers are the ATSTs that you first see in Empire. These are
Yes,
these are little girls.
These are
little
cute.
girls.
They're little gals.
The
They're
little
so
gals.
cool, though.
And then
They're
I
so
was asking
cool.
what for something that ostensibly has to be an extraordinarily expensive military investment,
Uh-huh.
seemingly has only one function, is not even covered by armor or anything, thereby leaving, sure, I guess it's speed, kind of makes its target a little bit more difficult to hit, but still you would, I mean, especially considering later iterations of this exact same device, has some sort of armor. But the single-use function, there's not a gun attached to it. It's literally just a thing that makes folks walk faster.
Like a chicken.
You know what else makes things go
kangaroo.
faster? Jetpacks. Jetpacks, which exist in Star Wars.
Maybe they were not built for the war. Maybe they were repurposed civilian, like farming machinery, like cherry pickers or apple.
That's a
orchards.
great no prize answer. I love that.
I love that. And the other piece of it, Mark, which is funny, is that like you start to see in the machinery, the ships of the Republic, what is eventually the Empire, right? Because the Separatists are going to have, like, they talk about this, like the Separatists have, like, that's not what the Empire is. So they have
Yeah.
their own types of like styles. So you actually start to see little things like these
That's
mini
very cool.
ATSTs and like, yeah, so stuff like that is really interesting. Yeah, I was going to say that, Techno Union, I guess you could say, okay, well, who are the people who are being marginalized in this situation? Like, especially kind of pulling a parallel with the Star Trek episode. And you could very much say it's the Separatists who are, of course, very much like they are oppressing the Twi'leks. They literally have them captive. They have taken over their planet and their city. Yes, 100%. And like that's that sort of thing here. But I think even more engaging and interesting dynamic, especially one that's very similar to the Star Trek one, is the like elites of Ryloth versus this like resistance force that existed even before this. It's like their own internal conflicts. And then what does it mean for this? I mean, technically, like it's the Republic, right? And it's the Senate. So it's kind of like, as opposed to like the Federation being its own separate thing, like in Kirk coming in separately, it's like, although I guess the planet actually, the Cloud Dwellers one, that is part of the Federation. So it's actually kind of similar. It's like a sector of it, but like maybe the Jedi is like sort of like separate from the Senate coming in and being this court sort of like factor, this mediating factor. Yes.
Now, at the beginning of this whole tirade, not
Yeah.
your tirade, but just
Mine?
the tirade that I'm referring to in us talking about Star Wars
Right.
today,
Yeah.
I began with, I forgot to do my research on the French Resistance
Yes.
because I knew as soon as I found out that they're French and they just pull all from World War II,
Right.
I
Right.
knew that there was going to be something.
You're right.
And so
Yes.
you're asking, who are the people that are the victims here, as it were?
French
The
Resistance.
answer,
Yes.
as applied from the that bastion of academic integrity, Wikipedia.
Ooh.
Wikipedia or Wikipedia?
Wikipedia, not Wikipedia. Wikipedia.
I give Wikipedia money. So
Good.
go on.
Thank you. The French Resistance, also known in the French language as La Résistance,
France.
was a collection of groups that fought the Nazi occupation and the collaborationist Vichy regime in France during the Second World War.
Yeah.
So the show wants us to think that the separatists are the Nazis or the enemies.
Mhm.
And we know that George Lucas wants us to think of the Republic as Americans, the allies. They are bad, but for now, they are the heroes.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
taking in the extra textual information that these are newsreels or propaganda.
Yes, dude.
There you
yes. Go. Yes.
Great.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Senator Orrin Freitag is representing the collaborationist regime that allowed the Nazis to rule France during World War II. And so our hero, Sham Syndulla, is the leader of ostensibly the French Resistance. Now, Aspen.
Yeah.
Aspen.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you
Okay.
know?
Mark, do you know?
What resistance cells were called in rural areas?
Mm-mm. No.
Mark?
Wookiees?
No.
Twi'leks?
No. Aspen. Aspen.
Wait.
They
Can
were
you give me a hint?
called. Yes. It starts with the letter M.
Mom.
Yes. They were all called Mom.
Mom. Look out for Mom.
But to tie it back into Star Trek, because
Star Trek.
everyone pulls from the one war that everyone can agree who the bad guys were,
Yeah.
they're called the Maquis.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I love it. Oh, I didn't even I wasn't thinking about like Voyager and DS9. The Maquis are a resistance group.
So ostensibly, Sham Syndulla is the head of the Maquis within Star Wars.
Whoa.
Sham Syndulla is Chakotay.
Chakotay is both starts with a CH, Aspen.
Oh my gosh. It's like that like meme of that lady doing math in her head.
It's like that one meme that I play all the time on this podcast.
Again, it's
So
like
true,
poetry,
right?
so that they rhyme.
For some reason too, even though you kept saying it a billion times, that like the World War II imagery stuff, because like at this point in time, I love what you're getting at too. This is exactly what it is. In World War II, we are the goodies because there's a clear baddie. And then, so the Republic, right? And that's the United States. But then post-war, like we are an imperialist power. We are the baddies. It just doesn't seem like it because we're the ones with the power. And so the US, because of course the empire, the USA is the empire, like in Star Wars, and like hence the Vietnam War imagery and stuff like that. So
we're punishing the Nazis for having imprisoned so many innocent people for nothing. Meanwhile, we did it to the Japanese that were living here as well.
Or as everyone likes to say and bring up because it's true, the Nazis were borrowing straight from our policies and our Jim Crow policies and our horrifying policies even before. So
America so lacking in so much, but gosh darn it, are we the best at racism? Way to go, us.
Yeah.
Mark, what do you think of racism?
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I'm going to say it's bad.
Oh,
Interesting.
I did just finish reading The
cannot
Fire
wait.
Next Time by James Baldwin.
wait, what is it?
The Fire Next Time,
Ooh,
James Baldwin. And it was
Tell
interesting
us
him
more.
talking about like kind of the like unique history of America because of slavery and because of this like forced kind of like integration of races that a lot of like other
Mhm.
countries, and he was talking specifically about like France, don't have and so have not had to grapple with in the same way, and how it is like forged our cultural identity. But like it's the like resistance to actually like, and obviously any misinterpretation here is on my part and not him, but it's that like resistance to
How much gall would Mark have to have of being like, I think James Baldwin got this wrong.
yeah,
Anyways.
he didn't have this right. But I thought, specifically talking about like America's resistance to kind of coming to terms with that and what that means for our identity has like shaped us in a way that so many other countries have never had to like grapple with.
Truly, we seem to be a culture that again and again fundamentally wants to deny that we've ever done anything wrong. Over and over and over again, to the point where we have elected the ultimate denialist as the 45th and 47th president of the United States. And not only that, but it seems like a good swath of the people have done so proudly.
knowingly, on purpose. We are the empire. Here we are. I think
Sexy Gungan.
so.
Just automatically playing that does raise the timbre of the room. I think that works.
Yeah. Anything else on this? I feel like we talked about it both a lot. So
That's good.
did you know
That's
this is the podcast? Mark, I just want to make sure that you also said everything.
Yeah.
We're not done. We're not done. By the
I did
way.
want to
No,
bring
we're
back up Wim
No,
Wenders.
you got to stop. No, Kenny. Let Mark say his thing.
No, it's not worth it. I want to bring back up Wim Wenders, so you can't cut that from the top of the show.
Okay, now you can go.
A long time ago, start date this week. I courted a beau, I dated a geek, but none of them could warp my drive into hyperspace. The best of both worlds kept me in second place. Captain's log on a holocron. I wanted a snog, I penned a song. 17 more minutes of thighs in super high def. Aboard the USS Enterprise, DTF. Don't you take my Ewok glider and clip it. Don't you take my red shirt buddy and nip it. If you spill the tea, I'm gonna sip it. I starship it.
Aspen, what are we doing today?
Yeah, we are going to name our favorite ships. And they could be the ships that fly through the sky, or the ships where they go kiss, kiss, kiss.
Well, it's not or, it's and.
And both. Sorry. And we're going to do one and the other. Mark, some rules
Great.
for you.
Love a rule.
Kenny and I are limited to these episodes. So it doesn't have to be from each. Like it's going to be like it could be like a ship is from Star Trek, like a spaceship is from like Star Trek, but like a ship is also from Star Trek or Star Wars. It doesn't have to be from both, you know?
Got it.
Because you are not subject to the same rules as us. Oh, we also can't repeat ones we've said before. You are not subject to the same rules as us. You are an honored guest here.
You have diplomatic immunity.
You have diplomatic immunity. You're a smarty. You're not a dumb troglodyte. You could.
That means I'm one of the cloud minders. They're bad people.
If there's one way that people have qualified Mark Gerchak, one, he's infinitely crushable. Two, he's wildly aloof.
Yeah. He's
That's
just a
what
little
makes me
dum-dum.
crushable. That aloofness.
Wow, he's so naive. That's so hot.
So
Yeah, you could pick a ship or a ship from any episode or anything, like, and you don't have to worry about if it's a repeat or not. But you do whatever you want to do. That's what I'm trying to say is we got rules, but you do whatever you want, baby.
Whoa, that's crazy. I'm like Jet Li in Lethal Weapon 4. Is that not I think that was I think that works. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Based on Kenny's laugh, I'm going to assume that did make sense.
It's funny.
It's funny. I know good. It's funny.
It's funny.
Joke. You two have joke. I know good.
This is the first one that anyone's talked about Lethal Force since that movie's come out.
I talk about it weekly.
That's true. It's weird.
Doesn't he have diplomatic immunity in that? I'm pretty sure.
I'm sure that he does. Wait, are you thinking of... This is going to make me racist.
Uh-oh.
Thinking about Rush Hour?
I don't think so. Does Jackie Chan have diplomatic immunity in Rush Hour?
I don't think so, but I think the bad guy might have diplomatic immunity in that.
Maybe. I wasn't.
Listeners, if you think that I'm just being racist or it is, in fact, Rush Hour, why don't you go ahead and write in trekwarspod@gmail.com. Also follow us on socials, Instagram, and Blue Sky.
Please fact check all these movie refs.
Yeah.
So, I starship it.
Yes. So, I don't know. I have. So we'll start with like the spaceship. So, that's the other rule. It doesn't have to necessarily be like flying through the sky spaceships. It can be like any type of vehicle. We had to make that one of the rules just because not everything flies. And also we watched a lot of Ewoks.
Yeah, we watched a lot of Ewoks, the TV show Ewoks.
Incredible.
We watched a lot.
Truly incredible.
Yeah.
We watched.
They're one of my favorite parts of the entire mythos. I love an Ewok.
Thank you, DD.
So you took yours out of the package. Good for you.
Oh yeah. Can I go first?
Always.
I might be stealing yours. It's the ATTE walkers. That's what they're called. The chicken walkers.
Yeah, you definitely stole it.
From the Clone Wars. Okay, I did steal it. Oh, sorry. You've already talked about them.
Yeah.
You've already talked about them because I love them. Yeah. I love that they are whip fast. I love that they dart out and the way that the animation is on them. I love that there's basically in competition with those animals. Mm-hmm. And I like what we talked about, which is like, I imagine they are an early form of ATSTs and that they evolve into that. And there's something very interesting about them as a sort of like early form of this like terrifying thing that we see later by the Empire. So, but in the meantime, they're little tauntauns that are
little walkers.
Yeah.
You also love British Lay's potato chips. Because Lay's in Britain are called walkers.
Wow.
Facts.
What an Anglophile.
This is what I bring to this podcast. Just a
you're great.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Perspective.
Well, speaking of perspective, because I have to rush a little bit in order to get my answer, Mark, would you care to give us what your ship of the week is?
I don't know if this... I'm going to play by y'all's rules as much as possible.
Okay. I'm sorry I stole.
No, not at all. I don't know if this counts as a ship, but I'm going to pick the floating city of Stratos as a ship from Star Trek.
Outstanding answer.
Didn't even think about that.
That's a great actual answer.
Clever boy.
Thank you. Not technically a ship, but people live on it, and it's in the clouds. It's in the sky. It has some kind of repulsor technology. Spock comments on it.
It seems to have some sort of repulsor technology.
Yeah, the most impressive technology he's seen.
Oh my
and also,
God.
it's a fancy little thing.
It's a fancy little thing.
I don't know. The episode does that thing I always love where, like, we start on the planet and they look up and see it, and then they beam up there, and then they look back down the planet, and it's that, like, fun, like, look where we just were. And I always enjoy that.
One of my favorite special effects in the episode was the fact that they had clouds that were on the set in the background whenever Kirk and Spock beam in, and like, you know, they clouded up the little background. It's like you can actually touch the cloud. I thought that was a really lovely touch.
Mhm.
I mean, the set
God.
design is great in this episode.
It's fantastic.
Uh,
Great answer.
That's a great answer.
Thank you.
Kenny.
Mine is the jar that holds the Zenite at the end of the episode. The
Whoa.
Cloudminders.
Nice.
There are 5 of those jars, and that quite possibly might be the most jars that we've ever seen on Star Trek, which makes that pretty darn interesting. And it holds the Zenite that is refined. So that's pretty neat.
I thought it was interesting they only needed those 5 jars to fix an entire planet.
Seems maybe it's a small one.
Potent.
So one of those small
Oh,
plagues.
dwarf planet.
One of the small plagues.
Like the little prince
just a
plague.
little baby plague.
The whole
Like a
planet is
baobab can destroy it.
one small plague. It's really deadly, but it's like kind of deadly, but really kind of deadly. So they kind of really need to deal with it.
Right. Okay. Now we're gonna do our ships, romantic ships. They're always ships. They're romantic ships.
The kissy ships.
Boy. If y'all steal my ship,
I mean, there's
I
one
am
very
going to
obvious one. So if one of you has it, I feel like you should take it.
There's a fun thing you can do here, which is you can go for the idea of, you know, how like you might ship people that aren't obvious, right? You can go for that, or you could just go for the obvious ship because you're me and you want Spock to have whatever happiness or joy he wants.
hot.
Am I stealing it from you, Kenny?
No.
Okay, great. Mine is Spock and
Spock and Droxine.
Droxine. I mean, she's a like fucking Daisy Buchanan. Like she's a little dum-dum. I mean, she's not. Daisy Buchanan is not, but she is. She's like, I know. I gotta tell you, the way she talked was like pretty remarkable. Something about her, like, but look at this down below, father. Like it had like she is a classic, like, rich bitch, like who she's like, oh my goodness, people suffer. I had no idea. Yeah, and she's got wild eyeshadow. And
Which is a cultural thing for the women, apparently.
yes.
3 different separated colors, stratified, dare I say, colors of
Whoa. It's a metaphor.
it would be bicolor eyeshadow, but it's actually 3 colors, so it's tri
Shadow.
Yeah, try shadow.
Yeah, anyway, I just really liked, despite all that, I really liked her dynamic with Spock. I liked her, like, she was like crushing on him hard. And like when talking about him later to her dad was like doing that little sweet giggle thing. And he like clearly was like, oh boy, in a different kind of world. Yeah, man, girl, this might have been it, you know? So I just thought it was very gentle and it was very sweet.
Spock's got game this episode.
Oh, God.
Starting from Droxine's line, where Droxine's first line to Spock is,
I don't remember.
That's not the first line that she says.
I don't. What she's like, I've never seen like someone like you before or something. And he's like, well, I've never seen someone like you before. Like, basically,
Droxine says, I have never met a Vulcan. Spock says, nor I a work of art.
Oh, I forgot he said that.
That's such a good line.
He's like, I think what I like about it is he's into her. Like he's truly into her.
And then they talk about
that.
Spock talks about Pon Farr with Droxine.
Yes, he tells her about it, and I just find, I don't know, it's like, you know, way back. There's an episode, This Side of Paradise, where he gets spored and he turns into like a kind of like sweet, gentle, like can be in love kind of person. And it's like the closest we've gotten back to that since then. Like he's still Spock. He doesn't get to like hang from a tree, but you could tell that he's like, man, in a different life, maybe the one. And I just really like that.
Yeah.
That's all. Okay, that's mine.
It's great.
Yeah.
Mark,
Mike,
what is your ship of the week?
So I'm playing by host rules again. So I had to kind of go a little far afield. I went for something a little offbeat, off the beaten
If you
path.
choose my ship, I'm going to lose my mind.
If you thought of this ship as well, we should immediately marry one another because we're soulmates.
You definitely chose this ship, didn't you?
I don't
You
think
chose
so.
my ship, didn't you?
My ship is Kirk and his spinning officer's chair on the Enterprise.
That was my ship.
But about 3 minutes into the episode, he jumps up very excitedly as they're approaching, what's it called? Ardana, the planet. And his captain chair starts spinning around wildly behind him. And I know that William Shatner, as an actor, saw it and went, that's very distracting. So he reaches behind him and just like stops it from spinning. But that's the actor's choice. Why does Kirk reach back and tenderly caress his captain's chair?
He loves that chair.
Because he loved it. He loved the verve. He loved the movement. He loved the excitement of the chair.
Yeah.
And he just wanted a gentle touch for a love that can never be.
To be
Oh my
fair,
God.
in William Shatner's Kirk's last appearance in Star Trek, there is a moment where he is really having a love affair with the Enterprise center seat.
Ooh.
And he realizes how important it is to be on the bridge of that ship, because while you're there, you can make a difference.
You know, Mark, you're actually not that far off because, like, I know it's a fun joke one, but like the Kirk and the ship itself, like the Enterprise, like is one ship is one.
Yeah.
Like that's his true love.
And
That's
the chair would ostensibly be the G spot.
yeah.
Would it?
So you got to stop it from spinning.
Yeah, stop her from spinning.
It's dangerous if you let that thing spin. Because it can if you're not careful.
Just like
Yeah.
a buzzer cap, so too will it spin out into infinity.
It's dangerous.
It's dangerous.
Don't try it, everybody.
Don't
Don't
try
do it.
Kenny, what's yours?
Also, that was a great choice. You're gonna love this ship, Aspen.
I'm gonna
I
hate this.
guarantee it.
I'm gonna hate this.
It's Vana and Droxine.
Oh.
I'm gonna love this.
There is just something about their dynamic that went from a friends to enemies ship for me.
Mhm.
Because Droxine is a transplant from below
Right.
as a sentinel, as a surrogate, and there has got to be something where Droxine sees Vana and is like something exotic, something otherworldly, something to satiate my little bit of rebellion from my father. So I'll take a dalliance, why not? And Vana in Droxine sees power, she sees wealth, she sees all of these things she's never seen before, and someone that wants her for some reason. And so you know that whenever they first came together, and they did it in secret, because you knew that if it were to get out, it would be an extremely shameful affair. But that's what made it so exciting. And it was such a torrid love affair, so passionate, sensual, and pure. At first, it was just a communing of bodies and minds, an exchange of ideas, both of them learning about things that they had never even fathomed. But of course, Droxine's intolerance and also Vana's unfortunate prejudices, or rather her difficulty in trying to express true intimacy because she's had to be defensive her entire life, considering that she comes from such harsh conditions. And the environment conspires to keep them apart. So whenever we meet them at the beginning of this episode, they seem to be mortal enemies. But you know that there was something pure between them once. But it's something that was left better to the clouds.
Oh my
Whoa.
god. Oh my god.
That was beautiful.
God damn it. That portrait of a lady on clouds.
How long
Well
is that fan
said.
fiction you clearly wrote, though? Kenny?
Yeah, right. Can I read it on AO3 right now?
I'm about done with the first act or so I'm only on page 600.
Sounds like an AO3 fic to me.
Single spaced.
Yes. And before we
Amazing.
get into it, Kirk threatens to report Stratos, or the cloud organization, and Placis, the leader of Stratos, to the Federal Bureau of Industrialization, otherwise known as the FBI.
Oh, geez, that's true. That's true.
Nice.
And then Heidi, in regards to the leader, Shams Syndulla, said that his name is Mr. Bunny Rabbit. Senator Orn Frita is Mr. Bunny Rabbit. So many chins.
Thank you. Thank you.
For that commentary, Heidi. We really appreciate it. But the time for commentary is over as we once again return to the central conceit of this podcast. Art exists only within a binary. It is either good or it is bad. And so too do we try and finally find out what the answer is to that binary of which is better, Star Trek or Star Wars, by going through both of these episodes and ranking them on a 0 to 10 scale. Once again, the episodes are the Cloudminders from Star Trek, the original series, season 3, versus Liberty on Ryloth from Star Wars, the Clone Wars, season 1. Aspen, just to demonstrate to our good guest here, why don't you go ahead and go first?
I
Okay.
don't know how to rate things.
Yeah. We're gonna do Star Trek first.
Mark, guest choice. Which one should we go with first?
Let's go with Star Trek first.
Great.
Yeah.
Star Trek first.
Okay, Star Trek first. 0 to 10. What am I gonna give it? What am I gonna give it?
Who is this
What am I
character?
gonna give that?
Star Trek. Whoa. Hey.
Hey, ooh.
Hey, 7.5.
7.5. You do love to see it.
Yes, I do. I did love to see it. That's why I gave it a 7.5. So you can give it an increment, 7.3, 6.8, whatever you want to give it. You can even spite rank things. Sometimes I'll go through and I'll be like, this was great. And Kenny's just like 0.5. And I'm like, what the fuck?
And then I'll
Anyway,
be like, Aspen, it had brown face. Because
and I'll be
Aspen
like,
loves brown face a lot more than I do.
real
I find zero
racist.
tolerance for brown face.
Racist.
And Aspen's like, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
a quote.
Speaking of that bad, I'm going to rank this episode 7.75.
There you go.
This was I just really enjoyed this episode, and perhaps it is the context of which I am watching it. But just, I just found it very potent. I appreciate the unsubtle nature of the storytelling here, because we need these kinds of stories screamed as loudly as possible right now.
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And
We're having a hard time.
It's in the clouds. What do you want from me?
It's in the
cloud-
clouds.
Cloud City is now something I associate with Star Trek instead of Star Wars.
Oh no.
Oh no. Lando's gonna be pissed.
Lando? The Lando system?
The Lando system. Lando's a man, not a system.
Oh, okay. It must be in one of the Star Wars that I haven't watched yet.
Yeah. Yes.
Mark.
What do you think?
For me, I have to give a bit of a preface.
I love this ranking.
Love this. But it's not even about the episode. Here's the thing. I have one of my pet peeves has to do with ranking systems. And in my head, I know a perfect ranking system. And so while I appreciate that y'all have this weird 11-point scale, 0 to 10, out of an 11-point scale, weird.
It's true.
And then
So
even
that we
farther,
can do 0.5s.
then you also, you split it down even farther into 7.5. All these things. That's like a 122-point scale or something that you'll.
Okay, Mark, you start your own podcast. You start your own podcast, Mark.
And it's going to be a rating system.
It's a whole podcast about rating systems.
You rank the ranking systems on a scale of 1 to 10.
1 to 10. But my ideal ranking system is out of 4. 1, 2, 3, or 4.
No.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'd see you don't like it.
Uh-oh.
So what I'm saying, I'll say all that to say,
Yeah.
is that I rated them out of 4 and have had to post convert to match your metric.
Great one.
Because I'm a guest on your cast, as I like to call them.
So something bad would be what? 0 stars?
There is no 0 stars.
It's
There's
one.
no 0 stars.
It's one. Yeah, they're very broad categories, but it's a 1, a 2, or 3, or 4.
But like, what about something that? And again, this is the Track Wars podcast where we try and rank which one is better, Star Trek or Star Wars. But like, what if something that is so bad, it's extraordinarily offensive to you? Like me watching Joker 2, where I was like, this is so bad, it's offensive.
I don't know. I think it just has to go rank it a 1. Yeah, it just got to be anything but 1 and 2 are movies that are probably not worth your time. Unless you're like actively being like, this is so bad, it's good. But then it probably wouldn't be a 1 or 2. It'd probably be a 3. No, it'd probably be a 2.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Anyway.
Interesting.
So you've had to do conversions.
So I did conversions. I just did some fast math.
You look over it like, I'm like, do you have like a calculator right there? You're like, it's your phone. It's your phone, but it's a calculator.
It's my phone. So my ranking for the Cloudminders is an 8.25.
Whoa!
Wow!
Which is a 3 out of 4.
Wow!
In a proper scale.
Wow!
Yeah, I really liked it. I came into it expecting, because of my only real experience with like, quote unquote, whatever we'll call it, proper Star Trek being those first few episodes of Next Generation. I was like, this will be fine, but it's just not going to be my bag. And you know what? I really dug it, and I thought it was very cool and very fun.
Turns out you liked it more than us, even though you said you probably wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
That's
wild.
No,
That's outstanding. And I really appreciate that.
yeah, very good.
Wow.
And
There
Kirk
you go.
drop kicked a guy 5 minutes in.
He really did.
Goal.
It's true.
It's great. Oh, that's fun.
That brings the collective total to the Cloudminders to a robust 7.625, but it's still anyone's game as we barrel into the subsequent thing that we're going to rank. Liberty on Ryloth. Aspen, start us off.
You know, I was looking back at it. So I gave Storm over Ryloth an 8.3 and Innocence of Ryloth an 8.1. I think I probably gave Storm an 8.3 because it focused on Ahsoka, and I really love Ahsoka.
And also it's a better episode.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, no, I think so. I'm trying to think. I think maybe this one is an 8.2. Yeah, fucking skexy.
Outstanding. I'm going to give this one a 7. I like this episode. It's a good episode. But, it is good.
Okay.
That's it.
I would like to say I thought this episode kicked ass. It was very much more battle focused. I think it's below the first. Yeah, it's much more battle focused, but I really liked the focus on Mace Windu. It genuinely, for that sequence where the sound drops out and it's extraordinary, it like upped it a few points for me.
Dynamite sequence.
I do think that like the conversations, I think like Sham Syndulla pieces are just very poignant, very interesting. I think it's pretty cool. It's a very cool episode. That's why my ranking. Just want you to know.
All right.
Yeah. Mark.
So Aspen's 8.2, my 7.
Yeah.
Mark, what do you rate this episode?
This is where the conversion system, I think it doesn't work as well. Unfortunately. Because based on the maths I've done, it does feel lower than I would actually give it. But it is currently at a 5.5.
Wow.
That's up converted from a 2 out of 4.
Mark!
It's only 1 point lower than I gave the other episode.
Mark!
I enjoyed the episode, but I do think I did a service by watching it second and having not accustomed myself to the storytelling of like the Clone Wars. I was just like very buffeted over the head, and I kept waiting for it to kind of dig deeper into some of the ideas that it didn't have time to do. Which I mean is not necessarily a fair criticism, but I can only base it off this one episode that I have seen.
That's true.
So I enjoyed a lot of the episode, but
that's the thing that we've talked about ad nauseum here on the podcast of
the cast,
Lucas and company, just talking about, and again, stealing from Jesse Earl, talking about appropriating aesthetics so you can deal with shorthand for the things that you actually want to deal with, which are the fun space toys.
Sure.
And
there were
this
some just like awkward little structural issues where I was like, we don't need to spend all this time with the bad guys. They have the same scene like 4 times.
Yeah.
Cut it out. Dig deeper into some fun stuff.
Well, speaking of the same scene, so too do we conclude yet another episode of Trek Wars by ranking Liberty of Ryloth paltry 6.9 versus the Cloudminder's robust 7.625, which means Aspen, Star Trek wins the week.
Enjoy it while you can.
I will. Because in like 3 episodes, it could be very dicey for me. It could be very dicey.
I'll always be here, Ken, to pull down the Star Wars scores for you.
Well, I won last week, which was very good.
Oh.
I felt very good because it's been slim pickings for the Star Trek contingent over here.
It's true.
And
I am just like rolling in my wins.
Next week could be good. It could be bad. I don't recall. Either way,
we don't know.
We'll be doing another podcast.
Do y'all have an overall score of which
I would love to tell you that. Right now, the score stands Star Trek at a overall Star Trek, unless the math is wrong, is at 6.119 versus Star Wars is 6.316. And I'll round it up because it's at a 666. So 6.32. So which means because the numbers don't lie, Star Wars is better than Star Trek.
Because numbers are objective and real, and there's no complexity to them or different answers.
None.
You cannot manipulate data and statistics to prove a particular point.
Absolutely not. That's science.
Well, speaking of manipulating data and statistics, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@TrekWarsPod, and you can see Aspen make such gesticulations such as this. Beautifully expressing the current state of so many of us here in the United States of America at this point in time. And additionally, if you would just like to listen to the audio version, you can obviously listen to this available wherever podcatchers are. If you want to get in touch with us, why don't you get in touch with us via social media, Instagram.com and Blue Sky. Just search Trek Wars Pod on both. Additionally, if you don't want to reach us via social media, why don't you go ahead and send us an email, trekwarspod@gmail.com. And finally, if you would like to make sure that this podcast keeps on trucking, baby, then why don't you go ahead and head over to Patreon, patreon.com/@TrekWarsPod, or I think just /TrekWarsPod, where for $1 a month, we will literally just read your name on air. That's all you have to do.
That's cute.
And for $5 a month, you can get early versions of these episodes and extended versions of these episodes. And you too could join the fine auspices of fine folks such as Timbo DeSosa, Heidi Rogers, Austin Aaron. Oh my gosh, what's going on?
It's overwhelming.
Kevin Miller, Arizona Mark, Austin Aaron, Baobab Cactus, who asked us to send them the Star Wars RPG. And I believe one of us will take care. Aspen did. Great.
I'll find it.
Thank you. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, Joel T. Partner, who composed the I Starship theme song. Our opening and closing music was written by Mr. Tosin Awofeso. Please patronize them by visiting their link in the show notes below. Mark, is there any place anyone can find you outside of just hopping around Austin in general?
No, I have a very limited online presence. But if you like local theater, you can probably find me pretty quickly.
That's
nice.
True. I mean, I gotta say that you are an exceptionally talented person on stage, and not only that, I wouldn't necessarily couple this with every single person that is exceptionally talented, but I also feel very safe around you, and I always feel like I've got someone to talk with, which is not always the case. I find that exceedingly rare, and you're just such a gem of a human being, and thank you for existing. Period.
You don't remind me of my mother.
Oh,
Aspen, why I feel like that's a much less compliment than what I said,
What?
because now you're drawing false equivalent.
What?
People
Mark,
can find me. I do have a brief cameo in the latest Wim Wenders movie. If you want to check that out.
Mark, love you.
Love you both. Thank you so much for having me.
Love you.
Aspen, I love you.
I love you.
Audience, we love you. Live long and prosper. And may the force be with you.